South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Governor, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you so much for having me on, Shannon.
Governor, you've made clear you're among those who would like to see Roe struck down. Well, our brand new Fox News polling shows us this. When asked about that, 63% say let it stand, 31% say it's time to overturn it. Are you out of step with the American people on this?
No, in fact, 71% of Americans believe there should be some reasonable restrictions on abortions. You know, when I ran for governor, I talked about being the most pro-life governor in the country. Science has proven to us that life begins at conception, and the bill that I'm bringing this year to our legislature says that when a heartbeat is detected, that then abortions should not be an option for people, that we need to protect those babies. And Shannon, I think what's interesting in South Dakota is that we've proven this issue doesn't have to be divisive. Last year, I brought a bill that protected babies upon the diagnosis of Down syndrome, and it unanimously passed my legislature. Republicans and Democrats together believe that when parents get that diagnosis of Down syndrome, that babies shouldn't be aborted just because of that diagnosis.
So the bill that you talked about, the new measure you've got that you're working on this year, is very much like Texas SB 8, which is the one that's been back and forth at the Supreme Court. Essentially says that people who aid a woman getting an abortion after the time that a heartbeat is detected, they can actually, as private citizens, bring a case against these women. So this week, the Supreme Court had dealings with that particular bill out of Texas, and Justice Sotomayor said this about it. She said, it's a complicated private bounty hunter scheme that violates nearly 50 years of this court's precedents. She went on to talk about the case about the law. She said, it's a disaster for the rule of law and a grave disservice to the women in Texas who have a right to control their bodies. How do you respond?
Well, that's her opinion. That is not a legal defense of what that decision was. And the Texas law has been upheld 3 times now. The South Dakota law is different. It is modeled after the Texas law and says when that heartbeat is detected, that then abortion is not an option. And frankly, since we got to the Texas law in place, lives have been saved. You know, in South Dakota, there's a private right of action clause that is different than the Texas model. But we think that that really gives people the option to really not insert the state into that relationship, but make sure that people have the opportunity to go after those doctors that do perform abortions and save those lives so that we can continue to be bold in doing that. I was very clear when I ran for governor and since I've been governor that we wanted to get up every single day and look for ways to protect every single life, that equality truly does come from valuing every single life. And that is what we've done by putting an unborn child advocate in the governor's office. I saw Glenn Youngkin just did that as well, and I was so grateful to see him add that job description to the governor's office there. And we'll continue to advocate for showing exactly what science has proven over and over the years, is that this truly is a life and that it needs to be defended.
Pro-choice advocates, lack of access to abortion is most detrimental to women of color, to people who are struggling for financial stability. We know that just over half of the women who've sought abortions there in South, that they had is not thinking that they could actually have this child. So what kind of resources, what kinds of efforts is the state making to help these women? If you're telling them they can't have an abortion, where is the assistance otherwise?
And that's one of the things that we need to do a better job of across the country, is taking care of mothers, letting them know that there is options. We had about 120 abortions in the state of South Dakota last year, which most people would say isn't very many, but it's 120 too many. And we do have amazing centers and people that wrap their arms around these mothers and these families and let them know that there are options for that child, that there is adoption, that there is ways that they'll come alongside them and mentor them so that they can teach them how to be parents and help them through the struggles that come with raising a child. Right here in Sioux Falls, the Alpha Center is a fantastic organization that's been doing it for years, and they constantly champion supporting mothers and making sure that they know that there are other options rather than abortion.
Let's talk COVID-19. You've gotten a lot of attention for the way it's been handled in South Dakota. Not surprising that you would have critics on the left, but let's talk about your critics on the right. They say you considered or actually carried out a number of things they had a problem with, potentially an executive order that would have required some people to stay at home, proposing legislation that would have given your state health secretary the power to shut down both public and private places, some powers that would have been granted to the counties to do similar things, and using the National Guard to do contact tracing. So at what point did you pivot away from those policies, and why?
So those were not executive orders. Those were bills that were brought in the legislature that were never put into action and never utilized. The National Guard was used to support our COVID response, and everything was voluntary and an option that people could utilize if they wanted to. And so what we did is partner together with our people. I think there'll always be critics, Shannon. We've realized that the people in this day and age, they hear their leaders talk about division and trying to create anger and fear, when really what we should be doing is talking about letting people have personal responsibility, letting people make the best decisions for their families, have flexibility, and get through this together. We did that here in South Dakota, and I think there are people outside the state that certainly want to criticize. I guess I can take it. I've been taking it for a while now. We'll do that, but we'll keep our focus on what's best for our state.
Well, and some of this comes from state lawmakers who say they're the ones who were the true conservatives in actually pushing back so some of these things didn't take place. At last check on your state health department website, the positive test rate for PCR tests is 41%. So what are you doing now in South Dakota to get that number down?
We are doing exactly what we've been doing the last 2 years. And we're right in the middle of where all the states rank right now for cases. But Shannon, in South Dakota, we haven't focused on cases. We focus on hospitalization rates. We know that we can't stop this virus, so we can slow it down, but that we need to focus on hospital capacity, taking care of people should they get very, very sick. And so we've been partnering with our hospital systems to continue to do that. Nothing's changed in South Dakota. This is our priority. We're working together to take care of those individuals, but there are cases. We know that people have been vaccinated, then some people haven't. But regardless, that we're going to give them as many options as possible to get through this and to be healthy again.
So a topic that has made a lot of headlines for you, the NCAA this week talking about how it will assess or allow who can assess which transgender athletes will be able to participate in which particular sports. You're pushing a new bill that would ban transgender women and girls from participating on sports teams for girls, for women, or for females in your state. Now, the last time a piece of legislation came through, you vetoed it. You did put out a couple of executive orders that a number of conservatives thought were watered down, too weak on this. So what has changed, and what will you do to get this across the finish line? Will you sign it?
Well, Shannon, that's simply not true. I did not veto a bill. What I did was I asked my legislature for changes, and they rejected it. So immediately that very same day, I put executive orders in place to protect girls' sports. And this is about fairness. This is about making sure that our girls have a chance to be successful and to compete, to win scholarships, potentially go on and play professional sports beyond that. We want them to have the opportunity to do that. Title IX fought for that years and years ago. And I've been doing this for years, which started, almost 5 years ago now in the sport of rodeo, where we protected girls' events. So now I'm bringing a bill to the legislature that will be the strongest bill in the nation in protecting fairness in girls' sports, and I'm hopeful that my legislators will support it.
You're facing a primary challenge from a former Speaker of the House there, the State House, Steve Haugard. This is what he says about you and your profile nationally. He says, "We need a full-time governor who's focused on South Dakota, not on Washington, D.C., who makes decisions based on what's best for their constituents, not what's best for their career." How do you respond to his critique?
I think the people of South Dakota are doing very well, and I'm not going to criticize Steve at this time, but we are doing very well. We're focused on our race. We've got a lot of work to do here in South Dakota, and I'm looking forward to talking about these issues and really how well we are doing in our state, preparing for the future and defending our freedoms.
What is the scenario? What are the conditions that you would view as a call to you to run for national office in 2024? What's that scenario?
I don't think there is a call for me to run for national office. You know, I am running for re-election here in South Dakota to be governor, and I'm hoping that the people here will support that and allow me another opportunity to continue the good work that we've done. We've got more to do. We've got the strongest economy in the country. We've got historic revenues. We put more money into reserves than ever before. We're investing in long-term infrastructure projects. Our people are doing very well. So we're going to continue to focus on that, but there's more opportunities ahead.
Well, if any of those opportunities involve 2024, feel free to come back and join us on Fox News Sunday to make any announcements, Governor. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon.